Hello again, guys and girls. This is that cosplay guy Michael again, here for another report. And this time, I am going to be covering pulp culture cooking. The community and the history and, well, basically what's involved with pulp culture cooking. So, let's get into it very quickly, shall we? I've got my papers here as usual. I got my coffee. This time it's in a themed mug. It's not your typical that cosplay guy green. It's a Harry Potter cauldron mug. Very pulp culture themed. So, but the coffee is still the same because, well, I like my coffee. Old habits die hard. Good coffee. Alrighty. Pulp culture cooking. Pulp culture cooking is the act of cooking foods and beverages that either appear in or are in some way associated with pulp culture media. This includes books, movies, television shows, anime, manga, comic books, you name it, video games. Any food or beverages associated with these media qualifies as part of pulp culture foods. So, while the culture includes any form of themed food, which ranges from normal foods with themed names, so like you could roast potato and call it, I don't know, Naruto Spud, and that will be a type of pulp culture cooking. Or you could make a cupcake and put this normal cupcake, well, let's make it fancy, a red velvet cupcake, and white icing, you know, your standard red velvet, and you put a picture of Barbie on top. There you go. That that cupcake is now a type of pulp culture food or themed food. However, the type of themed food or pulp culture food that is associated with the cosplay community is the third type, the reenactment food. These are foods that only appear in fictional settings. So, like, what have we got? We've got sweet rolls from Elder Scrolls, lambast bread from Lord of the Rings, plomeek soup from Star Trek, blue milk from Star Wars, True Blood's True Blood. All those beverages or foods that only exist in the fictional world, if they are reenacted into the real world, that's associated with our cosplay community. It's a type of prop creation. So yeah, so there you go. Recreated as accurately as possible in a similar manner to how crafters would recreate props or weapons, to be consumed in the real world. However, as is the nature of all forms of recreation, the success and failure of recreating fictional food depends entirely on the availability of knowledge and resources, and until recent years, the technology and knowledge to accurately recreate many fictional foods. It simply did not exist until recently. Additionally, even if they did, the openness to allow the practice to grow was lacking in a worldly culture where the study of anything involving works of fiction was considered to be a waste of time and resources. So, again, more often than not, the best that a profit-driven investor would allow would be a standard recipe on how to make an easy-to-be-created food decorated with an image or semblance of popular media. What that means is, well, nowadays it's recreated foods, recreated fictional foods, is on the rise now. But fictional foods have been around for decades. But yeah, well, people needed money and time and resources to make them, right? So, but unfortunately, people with the money like to spend as little bit as money as possible. So they'll always go for the easy way out. Case in point, we have a chocolate frog from the world of Harry Potter, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Pretty much recreated directly from its appearance in the movie. Fully chocolate. It doesn't hop, unfortunately, so we have yet to master that technology. So it's room for improvement. But yeah, it's got a little wizarding card inside, collectible. Fairly accurate from the media, from the franchise and media. So we have that. This is a recreated food. Then we have this Nintendo Power Mints. As you can see, it's a themed food. It's shaped like the original Nintendo Entertainment System controller, back from the 1980s, blast from the past. But if you have a look inside, if I can open it without spilling it, it's just a normal white mint. I'm not going to eat it right now because it is fairly old. This YouTube video will end quite abruptly if I eat one of these, I suppose. But so yeah, it's just a normal food, or normal candy in this case, but themed after a franchise. So themed food, recreated food. So these are the different scales of that pop culture cooking and food go in. So recreation and just normal food with a themed name. So anyway, so that's pretty much pop culture cooking in a nutshell. So, community synopsis. And the attitude of pop culture cooking community is essentially the same as the home cooking culture in regards to consumers, where individuals obtain various recipes and cookbooks and create food at home for personal consumption or for friends or parties. For independent creators in the community, those that research and create their own recipes, most individuals who create in-world recipes, fictional foods, did so simply because they saw a food in a franchise and wanted to eat it themselves. Creators who create inspired by or behind-the-scenes recipes tend to do so out of a desire to pay homage or to parodize a franchise rather than a desire to experience the actual world of the franchise. In terms of modern social presentation, independent creators tend to create recipe blogs and YouTube channels to showcase their recipes and their work to the larger community, or utilize their recipes for pop culture themed restaurants or theme parks in modern age. Creators may also accumulate their work and produce a cookbook to sell. These are either due to self-motivation, encouragement from the community, or after being hired by a publishing company or the franchise itself to do so. Okay, required skills to participate in the community is largely the same as the standard home cooking community. A desire to cook, or a fondness for food is pretty much essential. Additionally, for recipe creators, on top of proper recipe research and presentation skills, an ability to research into fandom franchises and fictional lore is required, especially for recreation purposes. Particularly if recreating in-world recipes, because you got to know where the food comes from, and So, additionally, skills in photography, prop creation, stage, and food photography skills also required if they want to make a cookbook or take photos of their the foods they made and post them on their Instagrams and YouTube channels. Alrighty, history of pop culture food. Here we go. Recreating foods and beverages that appear in stories have been a common practice since food first appeared in fiction. Recreationists, especially those that set out to recreate historical events or locations, often included foods as part of their facade, either foods of a different time period. Example, medieval or Renaissance fairs would have would feature food and beverages that, to the best of their knowledge, appeared during those things. So they recreated the food of that time period. Or foods of a different culture or country. Example, Chinese cuisine in a Chinese facade held in England. So they go out of their way to get food to fit the thing. However, most of these fictional foods were really real foods that already existed in some shape or form in the real world, with some exceptions in mythology, like ambrosia, or the golden apple, or the pill of immortality. Aside from that, most of the stories that existed in fictional works were already real food. So it wasn't as difficult, I suppose, to recreate fictional food back then, because they were already real food. So were reasonably obtainable to replicate. However, as the world's fiction became more fantastic, so too did the food within, with cuisine hailing from galactic alien cultures and magical elven lands gracing our pages and screens alike. It was only logical that fans would become curious about creating these fantastic foods as well, and the culture of pulp culture cooking, cooking foods from popular culture media, was born. So basically, the milk from tankards featured in Robin Hood evolved into the blue milk that Luke Skywalker drank in Star Wars on Tatooine with his aunt and uncle. So, used to be you could just get any old milk and say that was Robin Hood's milk, and it got a little bit more complex, and now you had to work out how to dye your milk blue without poisoning yourself to make it Luke Skywalker's milk. The first pulp culture cookbooks appeared in the 1970s with the Little House cookbook that was based on the Little House on the Prairie franchise, the Dark Shadows cookbook, and the Partridge Family cookbook. They replicated the common foods that the characters ate in those shows, and recipes that the cast and crew favoured and recommended. However, the recipes of these books were essentially normal recipes with fun names attached to them. So like Julia's Just Desserts, or Maggie's Witch's Brew Fondue. Which is just, it was fondue, but they added Maggie's Witch's Brew on the title to make it fancy. Make it themed food. Or the food was shaped or decorated with iconic imagery. It was also during this time that themed restaurants began to be developed, although at this time the themes were more based on real-world historical eras than fictional foods. A good example would be Planet Hollywood. There were also a lot of restaurants based on Elvis Presley, the swinging 60s and stuff like that, with the media merchandise decking the walls, a colour theme of hot rod red and white. It was more based on historical eras than actual fictional locations at this point. As competition to sell grew within the cookbook genre, authors started inserting flavour text within the pages to increase their appeal and make their books different from the plethora of other cookbooks on the market. Cookbooks like Cafe Nervosa, the Connoisseur's Cookbook from Fraser, that was in 1996, which featured character quotes from the Fraser television series, or the Sopranos Family Cookbook, that was 2002, which comported itself as a recipe cookbook created by the in-world character Artie Bucco himself. Just to make it different, they tried, so they themed those cookbooks that way to make them different, to make them noticeable. So the cookbooks themselves became themed and pulp culture. In 1999, Japan opens its first cosplay cafe, which the Maid and Butler cafes, which began a trend of themed cafes or restaurants that would offer a themed catering experience, while producing everyday foods that were either decorated with themed names or iconic imagery again. Was it the stereotypical imagery of a Japanese themed cafe would be a rice dish or a rice omelette, an egg omelette, and they'd use sauce to draw like an imagery of their whatever theme that the cafe was going for, and that would be the themed food. Or they would have a drink, which would be a standard soda pop with ice cream, and then they might have a shaped chocolate inserted on top of that, and that would be the themed drink, the pop culture drink. It soon became a common advisement that the patron goes there for the experience, not the food. Such was the average quality of the themed food on offer at these cafes. Not really their fault per se. I mean, their focus, monetary wise, it makes sense that you. How can I say this? From a financial point of view, it made sense to offer standard food that was decorated in a thematic way, than using spending a lot of time and ingredients to make fancy food. It's not. It loses a lot of the fun and the fantasy, but it does make sense from a financial point of view, and I mean these cafes do want to stay open. So yeah, reality of life, huh? Anyway, so come the new millennium, a new trend arose in visual media franchises, as the franchise would include foods and beverages shown in their respective fictional worlds as part of their merchandising line. Such examples include Harry Potter's chocolate frogs. As soon as the Harry Potter movie franchise came out, we saw those. First movie, we saw that food cart on that train with Bertie Bott's every flavour beans, the hopping chocolate frogs, and then later on we had butterscotch beer from Hogsmeade's, and the Harry Potter franchise went out of their way to make all those foods real as part of their merchandising line. So they recreated the foods that existed only in their fiction and brought it into the real world. But they weren't the only ones, and they weren't the first ones. True Blood, the TV show, the vampire TV show True Blood, they had the vampires drank a beer-like beverage that was true blood, true without the E. And the vampire characters would sit at the bar drinking their true blood, while the other human characters drank their beer and stuff like that. So the TV show brought the True Blood out into the real. It wasn't real blood. It was I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of energy drink, I think. It was very fizzy, but it was coloured red, and the bottle was accurate to the TV show as well. So again, they brought the beverage that existed in their fictional world and brought it over into the real world. They recreated it. It's pulp culture food. Other stuff, we have South Park's Cheesy Poofs Puffs, which is pretty much Cheetos, cheesy chips. Simpsons brought out their Duff beer, which I've been told is actually a legit type of alcoholic beverage right now. More research required on that. I have to confirm if that's an actual thing or not. Again, the Scooby-Doo franchise has had their Scooby snacks out for decades, hopping between human snacks and legit pet food. So yeah, Scooby snacks are out there. Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory has had a continuing line of candy since the first movie came out. Oh, that itself was decades ago. I mean, wow. So, yeah, it's not a new thing. Some franchises do, yeah. Anyway. But again, it was essentially a marketing ploy, and some of these recreation foods stopped as soon as the popularity of that franchise stopped. So, like with the closure of True Blood television series, the True Blood drink has disappeared. Yeah, the cheesy poof puffs are no longer gone. Are no longer around that I can find. So anyway. With the release of streaming services, television culture began to grow, and the common person began spending more time in the fictional television worlds due to binge watching. Increased sales of cookbooks, such as Sopranos Family Cookbook and the unofficial Harry Potter Cookbook, showed publishers that the pulp culture genre was becoming a viable investment. And major publishers like Penguin Random House began creating dedicated teams for developing pulp culture cookbooks specifically. No longer were they just random books that a cook wanted to produce and had to fight tooth and nail to get a publisher to invest in it. So come around 2010, publishers actually started waking up and seeing that, hey, consumers out there are interested in these fictional worlds and like to know more about them. So why not feed the masses? The masses want more. While fandom communities have had a deep interest in the lore of their respective franchise for decades, case in point, Star Trek, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who. The level of appreciation for the general audience market, or the level of appreciation from normal people for deep lore was less than positive. And this in turn affected the general market predictions on what would be popular and what would not. That is until the arrival of shows like Game of Thrones and The Witcher, which openly awakened general audiences into huge, deep lore worlds. It wasn't just those two. I mean, Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings made it more popular and acceptable to be openly fascinated with entire fictional worlds. Everyone wanted to know what lambus bread tasted like. Everyone wanted to have a second breakfast and 11sies and luncheon. And additionally, the release of Food Wars Shokugeki no Sama in 2015 introduced the general anime audiences to food and cooking culture. So yeah, I mean, that there were anime and manga that focused on food and cooking before Food Wars, but Food Wars was the anime and manga that really created a huge interest amongst the anime fandom for food and cooking. They were literally blown away. Where it was originally considered appropriate to just slap on a themed name over the top of a common food and call it exotic pulp culture dish, lore and story research had now become an integral part of pulp culture cookbook genre. Cooks had to put the effort in. No longer were audiences satisfied with just fancy names on normal everyday food. They wanted the food that existed in their favorite worlds. So the popularity of cookbooks exploded during the worldwide pandemic lockdown in 2020, created by COVID-19. People sought ways to entertain themselves within their homes, and the ability to recreate their favorite foods from their favorite fictional worlds they're watching on TV was just too big of a temptation to resist. So they would order these cookbooks online. With the lifting of the pandemic lockdown and a relative return to norm in regards to food culture, one can only hope that the realm of pop culture foods continues to grow in future areas. One such area might be the introduction of in-world recipes, that's the fictional recipes, into the themed restaurants and cafes, who continue to rely on decorated foods with slapped-on themed names. That being said, themed parks are actually starting to do this, introducing recreated fictional foods into their theme parks. The most notable one is Disneyland's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where you can actually go on down and buy your Luke Skywalker's blue milk, which is a Bantha cappuccino or something. It's Bantha milk. So, yeah, if you're feeling adventurous. Alrighty. So that's essentially the history of the development of the pulp culture cookbook, cooking culture. Next, we're going to list a bunch of notable individuals who have actually been appearing in the pulp culture cooking community. Excuse me. And it's a beautiful bottle. Okay, notable individuals. Chelsea Monroe Castle. Castle. She was a blogger who wanted to eat lemon cakes from the books of Games of Thrones and made herself into one of the largest pulp culture cookbook authors in modern time. She didn't do it alone, she did have friends. She keeps a focus on recreating fictional foods at a level that is achievable for at-home cooking, which is why she's so popular, because all of her recipes and stuff that she makes and blogs and posts and produces in her cookbooks are all accessible for the common non-cooking person like me. Monroe Castle is currently the go-to author for in-universe food recreations. Numerous franchises over the years have come to her to develop official pulp culture cookbooks for her. Game of Thrones, Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Final Fantasy have all come to her. She has developed all of those. Elder Scrolls, she has developed recipes from all of those worlds and produced cookbooks. So, yep, she's pretty much the number one go-to recipe cook at the moment. Another individual of note is Miss Amy Woodworks, a cosplayer and wood prop commissioner. Amy Woodworks is the creator of the Kickstarter-funded unofficial Legends of Zelda cookbook. That was a fan project dedicated to the successful recreation of every single food and beverage item that has existed in the Legends of Zelda franchise. That's games, comics, cartoons. Yes, there was a cartoon. She was reportedly inspired by the video game Breath of the Wild, where Link could cook his own foods and use them as health and mana restoration items and stuff like that. She and her partner wanted to recreate those foods into real life. And in doing so, after posting it on their blogs and stuff like that, was supported by the Legend of Zelda community to make her own cookbook. And so it was an extremely popular and successful Kickstarter funding project that resulted in a well done pop culture cookbook. Then we have next individual. We have Mr. Andrew Rea, a film student and YouTube cook who specializes in at-home cooking. His creations vary widely from conventional foodstuffs to restaurant-tier meals. But pulp culture themed food and recreations are included in his resume. So he's a YouTube cook. So we have Miss Monroe Castle, who's a food blogger and cookbook writer. We have Miss Woodworks, who was a cosplayer fan, who made a cookbook and recreated foods and stuff like that on her own dime, and crowdfunded from the support of the community. And we have Mr. Ria, who's a YouTube cook. Another individual, Miss Nadine Estero, an anime fan and YouTube cook, who specializes in both themed foods and recreating food that appears in various anime. Her work has been featured in entertainment websites and publications such as Screen Rant, Dexetero, Gaming Debates, SVG, Compass, and Speed Magazine. Another individual, Miss Jennifer Fujikawa, a former theme park designer turned food writer. She has published many official pop culture cookbooks specializing in visual themed foods. So not necessarily fictional recreations. She specializes in food that is themed after a franchise. So she's written books from Marvel, Star Wars, Gudetama, I Love Lucy, The Princess Bride, Parks and Recreations. She is famed for having written 10 of her books during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, when everyone had a lot of downtime. So, yeah. It's Batman Black Coffee, in case you're wondering. So, yeah. This is actually kind of funny because it's because in the comics, Bruce Wayne is actually confirmed for loving black coffee as his preferred thing, but black coffee itself is a normal food, right? So it is both a themed food and a recreation. So, last individual of note that I've got written here is Mr. Quincy LK. Dungeons and Dragons fans will know who this guy is. Mr. Quincy is a cook and performer who cooks themed meals on YouTube in a Dungeons and Dragons-esque setting. His brand involves a combination of cooking, costuming, and LARPing that renders him unique from the other YouTube cooks. This has brought him to the attention of media companies such as Bethesda, who has employed him to star in Twitch productions for the Elder Scrolls Online video game franchise. So yeah, while the other cooks and individuals just focus on showing you the recipe, or that they will film themselves cooking, like they'll give you a first-person perspective of them making the dish and then showing you the end. Mr. Quincy will give you a full theatrical production, like you walked into his tavern. You walked into Quincy's tavern, and Mr. Quincy will sit down and say, "Good morning, top of the morning to you," and then while he's regaling you with a tale from Dungeons and Dragons fantasy settings, he will make a food platter for you to quench your thirst, or Give you a hearty meal of lime. Loin? I don't know. I'm a bad tavern keeper, what can I say? So, yeah, unique. That's Quincy's Tavern. Look it up. He is very good. So yeah, that's all the individuals of note in the pulp culture cooking community that I've found. If you have any others that you want me to add to the list, please hit me up. I'm more than happy to add to the list because this is meant to be an information archive reference in the future, right? So yeah, butterscotch beer's gone. Boo. I'll have to have my coffee instead. Okay, unique terms and classifications that exist in the community. We have the 3 types of food recipes. We have the inspired by recipe. These are recipes that create foods visually themed after pulp culture franchises. We have the behind the scenes recipes. These are recipes that create foods that were used during the creation of the franchise, or is somehow related to the creation of the franchise, but not necessarily existed in the franchise. So examples include placeholder food. So like in some movies or TV shows, you might see a character like drinking a wine or a beer. In reality, that drink might actually be like apple juice, or some kind of fizzy cordial or something like that, something non-alcoholic, because otherwise, after numerous reshoots, the actual actor or actress would be quite inebriated by the 5th shot. So yeah, the behind-the-scenes recipe would give you the apple juice and not the actual alcoholic beverage. But other recipes would include like food recommended by the staff or the cast. So like Jennifer Lawrence's favorite quiche, or Natalie Portman's favorite chocolate fondue, or Chris Hemsworth's preferred biscuit, something like that. That's a behind-the-scenes recipe. Then we have the in-world recipes. Recipes that recreate foods that existed within the franchise's fictional worlds. Okay, the types of cookbooks. We have official cookbook. That's a cookbook that has been officially overseen and publicized by representatives of the franchise that the book is based on. And we have unofficial cookbook. A cookbook that has not been officially overseen and publicized by representatives of the franchise that is based on. In no way does official or unofficial reflect on the quality of the recipe that the book contains. It just means whether or not the actual book has been noticed and endorsed officially by the franchise. Just because it's an unofficial cookbook does not mean that the recipes inside are shite. And vice versa, just because it's an official cookbook doesn't mean that the recipes inside are of excellent quality. But again, it can also do. So, essentially, don't judge a book by its cover. Not entirely, anyway. Yeah. Okay, another term, food porn. This is a term used to refer to images of food or descriptions of food that give the food exceptional focus. An artful and detailed portrayal, sometimes accompanied with auditory ASMR, and is presented in such a way as to inspire an extreme desire for the food from the audience, as if the media were porn and the food was a porn model. This is an extremely common method for food advertisements or pretty much any fantasy media. And yeah, however, much like typical porn, the images and descriptions in food porn media may be over-exaggerated or outright faked, unfortunately creating an unobtainable expectation from the audience regarding real food. Good example would be the television advertisements of fast food, like McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, and stuff like that. There's a very common complaint amongst people is that the food that's shown on TV is not the same in appearance or quality as the food that is that they buy from the actual store. That's because the actual television commercial uses over exaggeration with lights, and like the perfect conditions to take a photo and film. And sometimes it's outright faked. Sometimes it's not actually sauce that's in that burger. It's not actually milk that's pouring into that exquisitely crunchy bowl of cornflakes. So yeah, like in porn, it's not necessarily what can be attainable in real life. Anyway, so yeah, those are the unique terms and phrases in the world of pulp culture cooking community. We're going to move on to some unique trends and memes that exist in the community. We're going to start with the infamous Scooby Snacks from the Scooby-Doo franchise. Possibly one of the oldest examples of pulp culture food recreation, Scooby Snacks have been a staple food item in the Scooby-Doo franchise since the show's inception in 1969. Licensed as both a human snack food and a legitimate pet food, Scooby Snacks have been sold in stores as real-world confectionery for almost as long as the franchise has been in production. And it continues to do so. Unfortunately, I could not obtain any to actually show you today. Such is the limits of my physical location. But the odds of you being able to find Scooby Snacks in your local grocery store is fairly good. Okay, we have Final Fantasy's Potion from the Final Fantasy franchise. In 2006, Square Enix and Santori developed a health drink recreation of the Potion item from the Final Fantasy video game franchise. While initially a simple blue bottle, the Square Enix company later released a special edition bottle set based on the item's appearance in the then current installment, which was Final Fantasy XII, I believe. The following year, Square Enix released another bottle variant. This one was based on the potion bottle in Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. That was in 2007. And then in Lightning Returns, they made they got lazy, I guess. They just made a soda can with a character image on the front of it. Essentially the same drink, but they had bottle recreations. So this is one of them. So yeah, this was a recreation of an actual potion bottle from Final Fantasy XII. So yeah, us Final Fantasy cosplayers would be able to LARP, actually drinking a potion bottle and having their mana or health points restored. So yeah, it allowed cosplayers to effectively recreate their scenes or LARP or essentially enhance their cosplay costumes or photo shoots with a handy little prop. So yeah, which is essentially how pop culture cooking relates to the cosplay community. So we have Wonka candy from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory franchise. The Wonka confectionery brand was a candy food line inspired by the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory novel, and was originally developed as part of a cross-promotional film merchandise scheme by Quaker Oats Company. The producer of the 1971 film, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, convinced the Quaker Oats Company to finance the film in exchange for the rights to use the Wonka name to sell candy bars. So the famous Willy Wonka chocolate bar. And as such, the company created the Wonka chocolate bar in time to publicize the film. Unfortunately, it was quickly recalled due to a production problem. But the Wonka bar was later relaunched by a different company, Chicago's Breaker Confections, in 1976. And after a series of owners, was purchased by Nestle in 1988 under their Willy Wonka Candy Company brand. So while under that brand, since then, while there are numerous candies produced under the Willy Wonka Candy Company brand, the Wonka Bar and the everlasting Gobstopper, such as what we have here, come directly from the fictional world of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So the Gobstopper and the Wonka Chocolate Bar are legit pulp culture food recreations, while the other ones are just foods with themed names slapped on them. Additionally, a legend amongst the pulp culture food recreation community in general is the teacup, the legendary candy teacup that Wonka himself is shown to be drinking tea from. And then once he finishes the tea, he takes a bite out of the cup. And to demonstrate that the teacup is legit candy, he then goes on to declare that everything in the room that he and the characters were in right now was edible. And that concept became a legend amongst the recreation, a goal amongst food recreationists, to be able to make that teacup, to legitimately make a candy edible teacup that could hold legit hot tea. I think someone's been able to develop a candy teacup that can hold cold tea for an extended period of time without dissolving, but there is a difficulty currently in making an edible teacup that can hold hot tea without dissolving. So yeah, so that's a legend, and it's a sought after goal to create that teacup. Desired recreation foods yet to be made. Right, the sweet rolls from the Elder Scrolls franchise, an iconic food within the Elder Scrolls community. This confectionery is famed for being constantly stolen by rogue characters in world, resulting in the fandom meme that someone stole my sweet rolls. And ironically, yesterday, in preparation for this YouTube clip, I had actually made some sweet rolls, but by the time this morning, some conniving Khajiit actually stole all of my sweet rolls, so I do not have any sweet rolls to eat during this YouTube clip, which is probably just as well, because I don't think anyone would actually want me to be talking with my mouth full during this production. So anyway, sweet rolls constantly been stolen. It's a sad thing. But the fandom loves to recreate people stealing these confectionaries. So anyway, next trend: Satoshi Ishiki's naked apron cosplay from the Food Wars Shokugeki no Sama anime. And in fact, I am wearing the apron in question right now, as you can see. Kuma Bear. Unfortunately, it's not entirely accurate because as you can see, I am wearing clothes underneath this to keep this YouTube thing PG. So anyway, this is a iconic costume for the character Satoshi Ishiki from the Food Wars franchise. The costume consists of a peach-colored apron with bear print on the chest and nothing else. He is bare butt naked underneath this apron. The character is often seen wearing this attire while cooking at his boarding house residence, and anime fans who cook like to reference this audacious outfit from time to time. So it's just a famous pop culture food associated cosplay. Alrighty, in-universe cookbooks. So we have in-universe recipes. This is about in-universe cookbooks. An in-universe cookbook is a cookbook of in-world recipes that portrays itself, and the author as being from within the same world as the recipes and the franchise. That the book itself is a prop recreation. So such cookbooks include, but are not limited to, the Sopranos family cookbook, which presents itself as a cookbook written and presented by the actual chef character from the franchise. The Legend of Zelda unofficial cookbook, the one that was made by the cosplay fan Amy Woodworks, Legend of Zelda fan. She actually goes out of her way to make and present the cookbook like it was pulled directly from the Royal Hyrulean family library. We have Dungeons and Dragons Heroes Feast, Heroes Feast is an actual spell that the characters, magic-based characters, can use to create food. And so technically the cookbook itself is a physical a physical personification of the magical spell. Then we have the official Black Spire Outpost cookbook, which, like the Sopranos family cookbook, is presents itself as being written by an alien cook who actually lives on the Black Spire Outpost. So if you go down to Disneyland, you go to the Star Wars Galaxy Edge quadrant, you go to that restaurant, you will be able to interact with the alien cook who's written this book. So that's a deep lore dive for you. Fictional recreation at its finest. LARPing. Beautiful stuff. Okay, another trend, themed restaurants and cafes. Restaurant or cafe that has been visually built and decorated to fit into a specific theme. The extent of which the restaurant portrays the theme can range anywhere from having simple posters on the walls and nothing else, and then it goes all the way up to decorating the walls and shelves with specific items and knickknacks that match with a matching paint scheme. And then it can go further to having entire facades built over the walls and ceilings. The entire building could be built to match the theme. With matching furniture and tables, and in some cases, different tiers of themed restaurants and cafe. We have the Maid and Butler Cafe, a specific type of themed restaurant that first gained popularity in Japan in the 1990s and has since inspired the creation of many similar designed themed restaurants around the world. Before the creation of the Maid and Butler Cafe, themed restaurants were considered more along the lines of fast food franchises like McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Planet Hollywood, KFC. So like McDonald's was clown-based, themed, fun-themed. Pizza Hut, pizza-themed. Planet Hollywood was based on Hollywood-themed, Hollywood superstars, etc., etc. KFC, Colonel Sanders, and stuff like that. Okay, cooking genre, anime, and manga. This is a specific genre in Japanese anime and manga that focuses on the creation of food and beverages. The plots and the premises within the genre vary widely, ranging from battle cooking to slice of life cooking. It would be isekai, fantasy scenarios, futuristic science fiction, cooking in another world. But they will all focus on the act of cooking or recreating food. And yeah, so classic example is Food Wars, Shokugeki. It is not the only example, not by far. There are hundreds of them out there. Some that focus on cocktails, some that focus on beverages. Yeah, like Food Wars is a battle cooking one. There's another one that focuses just on what are we going to cook today and stuff like that. And yeah, shows the plot of him making the cooking food. There's other ones like there's a Fate Stay Night cooking series, which is just basically the Fate Stay Night characters in cooking scenarios. So yeah, that's cooking genre in anime and manga. Alright, the last trend that I have listed here is Halloween. That's right, the night of spooky fun that occurs on October 31st each year is famous for featuring themed confectionery, with the focus being on trying to recreate as grotesque looking food as possible while still tasting good. This trend has evolved in recent years into the Real versus Candy challenge, where confectionery artists create food variants of real-world items such as shoes or pocket knives or hats, and decorate them to such a degree that it is difficult to tell from the genuine article. If you put a real hat next to a confectionery hat, the goal is that the general audiences could not tell the difference, which one's real, which one's candy. And that the whole game would be, the observer would have to choose which one to bite into. They win if they choose the candy one, but they lose if they sink their teeth into real aged leather of a hat brim, and hilarity ensues. But yeah, so that's about it. Pulp culture cooking community, the hows, who's, what's, where's, when's, and why's. Again, if you have any information of note that you would like to offer me on this community, please let me know so that I can add it to my archives. In the meantime, that's about it. So I'm going to leave you now with my my everlasting gobstoppers and my chocolate frogs, and I am going to go to Hyrule Ranch and refill my milk bottle and have some Ramune milk from the Legend of Zelda franchise, right? Because my bottle's empty. So, once again, this is that cosplay guy Michael, wearing Food Wars apron and saying, happy to serve. Till next episode. Catch ya.